She was the kind of woman parents trusted without hesitation. Warm smile, calm voice, perfect references. The kind of nanny you invite into your home and hand over the most precious thing in your life, your child. In this quiet suburban town, people would later ask the same question again and again. How could we not see it? Because for nearly 4 years, no one did. Not the parents, not the neighbors, not even the police, until one small mistake shattered the illusion. My name is Joni, and this is the story of the perfect nanny and the nightmare she carefully hid behind kindness. The town of Maplewood was the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors waved from their driveways. Crime was rare, trust was common, and when families needed help with their children, they often turned to recommendations rather than background checks. That's how Emily Carter entered their lives. Emily was 29 years old when she arrived in Maplewood. She had soft eyes, neatly tied hair, and a resume that seemed flawless. She claimed years of experience, glowing references from previous families, and even basic medical training. Parents described her as gentle, patient, and naturally gifted with children. Within months, she was fully booked. She worked with infants, toddlers, and young children. She cooked their meals, read them stories, tucked them into bed. Parents trusted her so deeply that some gave her spare keys, alarm codes, and complete freedom inside their homes. And yet, behind closed doors, something was very wrong. At first, the signs were easy to ignore. A child who suddenly cried at bedtime, a toddler who became unusually quiet, a baby who developed unexplained bruises blamed on clumsiness. Doctors reassured parents, children fall, children bruise, children change. Emily always had an explanation. He tripped while playing. She's going through a phase. He just misses you when you're gone. Her voice was calm, reassuring, convincing, and parents wanted to believe her. Because believing her meant believing their children were safe. Over time, patterns began to form, though no one connected them yet. Children under Emily's care started showing behavioral changes. Some became withdrawn, others aggressive. Nightmares became common. A few refused to be left alone with her, clinging to their parents in panic. But Emily remained composed. She told parents the same thing. Children sense stress, they react to tension at home, and somehow the blame always shifted away from her. The first serious incident happened on a rainy November afternoon. 2-year-old Lucas had been alone with Emily for 6 hours. When his mother returned home early, she found him in his crib, shaking, his face streaked with dried tears. His arm was swollen. Emily said it was an accident. The hospital report noted inconsistencies, but there was no clear evidence of abuse, no witnesses, no history. The case was closed. Emily kept working. What no one knew then was that Emily was careful, methodical. She never left marks that couldn't be explained. She chose moments when no one was watching. She understood how much pain a child could endure without leaving visible proof. This was not chaos, this was control, and she enjoyed it. Everything changed with one family, the Harrisons. They were new to town, cautious, detail-oriented, and unlike others, they installed security cameras inside their home, not because they distrusted Emily, but because they wanted to monitor their newborn remotely. Emily didn't know about the camera in the nursery. That was her mistake.
The Harrison family had no reason to suspect anything unusual. They were new parents, exhausted, nervous, grateful to have help. Emily arrived every morning at 8 sharp. She washed her hands carefully. She spoke softly to the baby. She followed every instruction precisely. To the Harrisons, she seemed almost too perfect. What they didn't realize was that perfection was part of the disguise. The camera in the nursery was small, almost invisible, installed high on a shelf, angled toward the crib. It wasn't meant to spy on the nanny. It was meant to ease a mother's anxiety during long workdays. For weeks, nothing seemed wrong, until one afternoon. That day, Mrs. Harrison checked the camera during her lunch break. At first, she saw nothing alarming. The room was quiet. The baby lay in his crib. Emily stood nearby. Then she noticed the silence. Not peaceful silence, heavy silence. Emily wasn't smiling. She wasn't speaking. She was standing completely still, staring down at the child. Minutes passed. Then Emily leaned closer. What happened next would later be described in court using careful, restrained language, but those who watched the footage never forgot it. Emily whispered words no one could hear clearly. Her face changed. Her hand moved toward the crib. The baby began to cry, and Emily did nothing to comfort him. She watched. That moment lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Mrs. Harrison called her husband immediately. He rushed home. They confronted Emily before she even realized the camera existed. At first, she denied everything. She smiled. She laughed softly. She said, "You're misunderstanding." Then Mr. Harrison mentioned the camera. For the first time, Emily went silent. The police were called that evening. At first, officers were cautious. They had seen cases like this before: misunderstandings, stressed parents, overreactions. But when they reviewed the footage, their tone changed. The video didn't show everything, but it showed enough. Enough to raise questions, enough to reopen old reports, enough to look at Emily Carter differently. What followed was not an arrest. It was something slower, an investigation. Detectives began contacting families Emily had worked for over the years. Many were shocked, some were angry, a few refused to believe it. But then the stories started to align. A child who screamed whenever Emily entered the room, a toddler who regressed after months of progress, a baby who stopped sleeping through the night. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they told a story. Emily was brought in for questioning. She remained calm, polite, cooperative. She never raised her voice, never appeared nervous, never asked for a lawyer. She spoke like someone who believed she was smarter than everyone in the room. She explained the bruises. She explained the fear. She explained the crying. She blamed parents. She blamed stress. She blamed the children themselves. And for a moment, it almost worked, but investigators noticed something else. Emily kept detailed journals. At first glance, they looked like professional notes, feeding schedules, nap times, milestones. But between the lines, something darker emerged. Words like control, obedience, resistance. She never used the word pain. She didn't have to. Psychologists later testified that Emily did not seek chaos or violence. She sought power. She enjoyed moments where no one could intervene, moments where a child's fear belonged only to her. This wasn't impulse, it was ritual. When the case went public, the town of Maplewood changed. Parents questioned themselves, neighbors avoided eye contact, people wondered how many warnings they had ignored. Emily was charged with multiple counts of child abuse and endangerment, but the most unsettling part came later, when during her final interview, when a detective asked why she did it, Emily paused. Then she smiled and said quietly, "Because they gave them to me." Today, Emily Carter is serving a lengthy sentence. The children survived, but the damage lingered. Trust was broken, innocence shaken, and a town learned that monsters don't always look frightening. Sometimes they smile, sometimes they help, sometimes they hold your child while you walk away believing everything is fine. This is not just the story of a nanny. It is the story of how easily evil hides behind perfection, and how one small mistake, one unseen camera, finally revealed the truth.